So back in 2003, I'm speaking in New York City for a Wall Street investment firm. I had keynoted their national convention one year, a few years back. And so I knew most of the people. There were about 1,000 employees. It wasn't a giant group or anything like that. They were pretty nice. I mean, they were Wall Street. They were New York. But they knew me and everything. So I wasn't really too worried about this speech. I had been on tour, the whole year and pretty much doing the same speech and everything. And so what I didn't expect was I get to the program, and an hour before me, one of the most famous people at that time on television was the psychic John Edward, who had this giant program on TV, this really popular program on TV called Crossing Over, like crossing over into death, with John Edward. And he was really popular. And I've watched the show a few times. It was pretty interesting. It's those guys when, they say, oh, someone's in the audience who has an aunt and her name's Margie and she just died 6 months ago and she's talking to me now. And, so I'd seen the show, and he was really good. I mean, he was really good at what he did. And, I wasn't sure I really believed it or not, but it was really popular. So anyway, I get there, and the president comes. He says, "Yeah, you're going to follow John. John's going to be up first." And I said, I didn't even know he was a speaker. I thought, well, if he's just giving a speech, I should be fine, And so that's what I thought he was going to do, because that's what you normally see at conventions. It was their national convention. And so, long story short, he's first, I'm second. He gets up there, and he doesn't give a speech. Okay, he says, "Who in this room has had a relative or a friend die recently?" And of course, like 500 people raise their hand, and he pulls somebody out of the audience and he starts telling them, "I'm talking to your brother, and he's telling me right now that everything's going to be okay and that you can have his red Corvette." He's doing this whole thing. He does this for an hour. People are crying. I mean, it was like he's making these Wall Street investment killers cry, which is a miracle in itself. Okay? And so I'm thinking, and I got to follow this guy? You got to be kidding. He's talking to dead people. And people are believing it. Like he was really on that day, or, maybe it's real. I don't know, whatever it is. But it was ridiculous. Like, he didn't give a speech. So I got to go up there and talk about mental toughness afterwards, right? So I'm thinking, this is like one time I followed the Beach Boys. Okay, you can't follow the Beach Boys. You can't follow a band. I followed a gospel group one time in Vegas, like one of the most famous gospel groups in the country. And you can't follow people like that. It's impossible to give a speech. It's just too dry compared to what they just saw. It's pure entertainment versus poor man's entertainment, okay, plus content. So anyway, he does the thing. I see him backstage, and I'm like, "You got to be kidding me. I thought you were just going to give a speech." He's like, "Well, no, he's a really quiet guy. He seemed like it." He goes, "Oh, that's what I do." And I said, "Well, okay, wow, this was fantastic. I mean, it was amazing." He goes, "Oh, yeah, thanks a lot." So, okay, so I go up there and I start my speech, and like the people are not even listening to a word I say, and they know me. They knew who I was. They all read my book, my first book, the 177, Mental Toughness Secrets book, this book, and so they knew me and everything, and they were fans. But you just couldn't. There was no way to beat this guy. It wasn't even beating him. It was just about nobody cared what I said. Nobody cared. I mean, I had them for, I think, an hour, and it's just nothing. I didn't matter. I felt completely impotent. There was nothing I could do. No matter what I said, they didn't respond. And again, I had spoken there before, and they liked what I had said before. This just was not happening. Okay, so I just went through the whole hour. I did the best I could. That's what you do when you get in that situation. If you're a speaker or you want to be a speaker, I guarantee if you speak enough, you will bomb. The only people that don't bomb are the people that don't speak. The people that do speak and say they don't bomb are liars. Everybody bombs at some point. You run into a bad audience, a bad time, something happens. There's always something that if you do enough speeches, you're going to run into a bad one. And the biggest thing that Bill Gove, my mentor, taught me, the father of professional speaking, taught me, was he said, just make sure it's not your fault. In other words, you've prepared. You've done your research. You've done the rehearsal. You've done everything. You are ready to go. And somehow, for some reason, they did not respond. But it's not because you didn't do your homework or you didn't do the rehearsal. Because if you go up there and bomb, and you got to go back and sit in your hotel room and think about it for the next, till the cab comes to pick you up, and you're back to the airport flying somewhere else to speak some other meeting, you're going to have a real tough night. You're going to be up all night rolling around thinking, what did I do to myself? So I was prepared. I did everything I was supposed to do. And then I went up to my hotel room, went back to my hotel room. This hotel was just empty that I went to. They were local in New York, so none of them were staying at the hotel. Typically when you speak, the hotel is full of the people at the convention. But since they were based in New York, no one was there. The hotel was empty. I remember that. And so I was up in the room, just feeling bad about it. I didn't know I'm thinking of what could I have done differently. And, it's if you've ever bombed in front of 1,000 people or even 10 people or 20 people, it's just the worst feeling. You just want to crawl in a hole. It's really bad. It's just it's like having a bad case of the flu, for a while, for a couple of days. And it's tough to get back up on the horse, And so anyway, there are worse problems in the world. I get it. But that, in terms of being a speaker, it's not the most fun thing. So anyway, I had room service come in, and I ate, and I watched TV, and I still felt horrible. And I thought, I'm going to go down to the bar and have a drink. There's no one in this hotel. So I go down to it was a nice hotel, but it was empty. And so I went down to the bar, and who's sitting at the bar? John Edward is by himself. There's no one else there except John Edward and now me. And I went up to him, sat down. I said, remember, I'm Steve Siebold. Followed you today. And he goes, oh yeah, he's a real kind of shy guy, it seemed like. And he goes, oh yeah, nice to see you. And he goes, how's your speech going? I go, what, terrible, thanks to you. He goes, yeah, sorry about that. He goes, I'm talking to dead people. He goes, it's kind of hard to follow a guy that talks to dead people. I go, tell me about it, John. Really? And so we knocked back 3 or 4 vodkas together over the next couple of hours and had a really nice conversation. Nice guy, super nice guy. Asked him about the whole thing. I said, hey, is it phony? What's the deal? Come on, man. Shoot me straight here. We're drinking in a bar in New York. I'm not going to tell anybody. And he said, no, he goes, I'm telling you, this is just what happens. I can't tell you any more than that. He goes, I don't know what it is. He goes, I'm not sure if it's God or the universe or whatever. He says, but I hear it in my head. I don't know. He goes, it's not fake. He said, I don't know where it comes from, because I wish I could tell you. Hey, he was very genuine is my point. And he was a super nice guy. And at the end, I just said, well, thanks a lot, John. I appreciate it. Thanks for, these guys are a client of mine. I totally bombed. He goes, yeah, sorry, man. He goes, so the lesson is, don't follow a guy that talks to dead people. Just do not do it. If I would have known, on a serious note, if I would have known I was following him, I would have rebooked the speech. Because you can't. It was, again, I followed the Beach Boys one time at Johnson & Johnson. The Beach Boys. They played 3 songs in California. They played 3 songs, and I went on next. Nobody wants to hear a speaker after you hear live entertainment that's world class like that. And I can tell you other stories like that. And every speaker works can. But it's just one of those things. But the lesson on bombing, just to put this in a bow, besides following people that talk to dead people, is just make sure you're prepared. Just make sure you do everything you possibly can, because you never know, like Les Brown likes to say, and he's right, you never know what's going to happen in a live audience. You just don't know what's going to happen. And a lot of things have happened over 25 years of doing this, running around the world speaking to audiences. It happens to every speaker that works. You just have a lot of stuff that goes on out there that you can't control. So what do? You just do everything you can control. You rehearse, you practice ad nauseum, over-rehearse, do all the work, do all the research, totally prepare, you're 100% professional, and then pray everything in the audience that you cannot control goes well. And that no one's talking to dead people, before you go on stage. It's unbelievable.